Liddell, and this is the Shortpod, a brief and succinct podcast commenting on the events and issues of the day. And today it is the 9th of September 2022. Yesterday, Queen Elizabeth II, monarch of the British Empire, of Great Britain, Northern Ireland, the Falkland Islands, a few islands dotted here and there, also the Queen of Canada, New Zealand, Australia, and possibly a few other small countries, passed away. In general, this is quite a disturbing event for the world because in recent years the world has become increasingly unstable. We've got a war in the Ukraine that could escalate into a nuclear war potentially. We've got the COVID outbreak. We've got the rise of China. We've got all this geopolitical instability. We've got the breakdown of old certainties about race and gender, etc. So massive change has been going on, and the Queen was kind of seen as a symbol of some kind of continuity, a comforting presence, blah blah blah. Anyway, the Queen is now gone, and we are now out of the Elizabethan era into the Carolingian era with King Charles III on the throne. There's a tendency in much of the commentary to be quite maudlin, banal, and cliched. You know, Queen Elizabeth will live forever in our hearts, which kind of implies that our hearts are going to live forever as well. Things like that. It's all a bit twee, it's all a bit reflexive. There's not really that much analysis going on. One reason for that is because it's actually quite hard to nail down exactly how monarchy benefits a country, or not, as the case may be. There's been lots of people who have piped up and said that Queen Elizabeth is kind of responsible for Britain becoming a multicultural state, i.e. she did nothing to stop mass immigration, blah blah blah, etc etc. And it's kind of true, and I've said this myself, that Queen Elizabeth was not particularly a lucky monarch for Britain. And hopefully, you know, King Charles III will somehow prove to be a luckier monarch. Because after all, you know, what is a monarch really except a kind of lucky talisman these days? Some people have said that the monarch can have a large influence behind the scenes. They don't actually have to, you know, seize control of the levers of power, but just through hints and signals, they can change the mood and push the country in the right direction. Queen Elizabeth II, it seems, failed to do that in any substantial way. She just sat through all the changes that swept over Britain, one after another. Gay liberation, feminism, transgenderism, all of this went by uncommented on by the Queen, not even so much as a hint or nod of disapproval. Now, I think the way to look at Queen Elizabeth's reign is to kind of draw a contrast with her successor, formerly Prince Charles, now Charles III. And I think both of them were essentially interested in maintaining the monarchy because it was the trough out of which they fed. It was their ticket to the golden life, in other words. And so I think they were very, very interested in defending the monarchy as an institution. They're probably less interested in the monarchy serving a useful social goal. Now, the Queen's strategy in maintaining the popularity of the monarch was to emphasize family and to open up the monarchy to the media, to sort of make it into a bit more of a soap opera, a bit of a Coronation Street effect. And this was a strategy employed over many years. It was to emphasize what a good family the royal family was, and to give the media lots of access so that people could kind of enjoy a voyeuristic relationship with the family and kind of think of it as part of their greater extended family. And this was a largely successful strategy, although in some cases it did kind of cheapen the royal family, and it made it a lot easier for certain kinds of scandals to emerge and to do the rounds. But this was the Queen's populist approach to monarchy, I'd call this. I'd sort of identify that as a form of populism. Prince Charles, he seems to have a slightly different approach. He's much more about conservation, he's much more about tradition, he's much more about environmentalism, and all of these things can be used to reflect back on the monarchy itself and to bolster it in various ways. Prince Charles is particularly famous for his views on architecture, preserving old buildings. It's a clear analogy there with preserving a church, preserving a palace, preserving a royal family. He's very much about tradition, the tradition of the church, which also reflects back and bolsters the royal family. The royal family in Britain, in the United Kingdom, they are head of the Church of England, head of the Church of Scotland. So religion is another bulwark of the monarchy. Environmentalism, this is again something else that Charles goes on about. Of course, this doesn't stop him jetting around the world in private jets at a horrendous rate. But this is very much where he tries to draw a lot of his moral power from. Being a keen environmentalist, being on the same page as Greta Thunberg and people like that, spouting all the truths or platitudes or downright distortions of the environmental lobby, puts him in a strong moral position. So this is another thing. The royal family needs to find moral ammunition in order to justify itself. And this is something that Prince Charles has worked very, very heavily on in recent years. The Queen, by contrast, she was much less of an environmentalist. She was quite keen on killing wild animals. She often, one of the reasons she loved Balmoral so much was because it was a great place for her to go up and shoot deer. And now the Queen, she also needed moral ammunition, and she achieved this by emphasizing this ethic of service to the nation. And she kept working even when she was very, very old, and when, well into her 90s, even a few days before she died, she was hard at work, trying to do as much as she could do, trying to carry out her various duties. And possibly that might have been one of the things that kind of killed her. I mean, I think if she had stepped back from her duties a few years ago, she could have adjusted to her extreme old age and probably have squeezed a few more years out of life. But her whole thing was about serving the nation. So she decided to keep on working right up to the brink of the grave, which is what she did. So in both the career of Queen Elizabeth and the career of the man we must now call King Charles III, we see two distinct strategies that aim to maintain the power and the popularity of the institution of monarchy. What greater good that monarchy serves, it's very, very hard to say. I'm hoping that with King Charles III, he might try to nudge the country in the right direction. He's not likely to have too much power and influence to really change the large economic and social factors that are determining the fate of Britain. But I'm hoping that, in contrast to his mother's reign, somehow he will turn out to be a luckier royal talisman for the United Kingdom. Anyway, those are my thoughts on the death of Queen Elizabeth and the ascension of King Charles III. Over and out.